many people get down to pray, and I do it myself sometimes. And when I start to pray, I pray for, I have a list or in my mind, or else I just think of somebody that's sick and all, and I begin to pray for others. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a little song that says, "Others, Lord, yes, others, let that my motto be. Help me to live for others that I might live like thee." And we're supposed to be able to pray for ourselves too, because it's important that we pray for ourselves. But Jabez is who I'm going to be talking a little bit about tonight, because he prayed a prayer, and it was for himself. And so I got to thinking about it, and I'm going to read out of 1 Chronicles 4, 9, and 10. I'm going to start with verse 9. "And Jabez was more honorable," or in other words, Jabez was more famous, actually, "than his brethren. And his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bare him in sorrow." She was talking about the birth pain that she experienced when he was being born. "And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, Oh, that thou wouldest bless me indeed." Now, I do want to be blessed by God, but sometimes it's harder for us to pray for ourselves and to tell God what we want and what we need, even though we know that we have to pray a certain way. We have to pray in His will and what His Word says, but also we can ask Him for things. And some people say, well, I feel guilty about asking God for something for myself, because I expect that God will probably take care of me and to give me what I need. But in this case, he wanted to make sure that he received what he needed. And so anyway, let's go on with the Jabez. "Then his brethren and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bare him with sorrow." I'm going to start over again. Somebody just came in. "And Jabez was more honorable," or famous, "than his brethren. And his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bare him with sorrow." She's talking about birth pain. And this passage does not say why or how Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. And at the least, he recognized that God is the source of blessings. So we know that if we want to be blessed by God, we ask Him for the blessings. And a lot of times people go and try to get other people to do things and give them things, and then they don't think about asking God for the blessings they need, the finances they need. We know that God is our provider, and it's not other people. Although people are nice and they do give things to us at times, but the thing about it is, I would much rather give. I've always been one that wanted to give, but receiving is hard sometimes, and you have to learn to do that too. But he's saying here in verse 10, "And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, Oh, that thou wouldest bless me in," and he's talking about indeed, and that indeed means in reality. "I want you to bless me, really bless me. I want you to bless me in reality, and bless me indeed, and enlarge my coast, my border. And that thine hand might be with me, and that thou wouldest keep me from evil." He's talking about misfortune. It's not talking about him doing evil, I don't believe. Because if you read it and study it a little bit, excuse me, it says that it may not grieve me. So he's talking about anytime misfortune comes my way, protect me from it, so that it may not distress me, it may not hurt me, it may not grieve me. And then it says, and God granted him that which he requested. Jabez recognized that God is the source of blessings. And Jabez asked God to bless him. And James said in James 4:2, I think that's coming up next. You lust and have not. You kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. You fight and war, yet you have not because you ask not. And sometimes when somebody will quote that to you and to me too, and saying, well, you say, I've been praying for this and that. I was thinking about this and that. And then they say, why don't you pray for it? Because you don't have it because you haven't asked God for it. James 4:2 and 3, I just read 2. I'm going to read 3. Ye ask and receive not. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here, but I've got my notes here, and I'm not doing too good with them. James 4:2, I want to read 2 again. You lust and have not. You kill and desire to have, or you covet what others have and cannot obtain because your lust is unfulfilled. You fight in war, yet you have not because you ask not. So there's a lot of things people go through to try to get things done for themselves and be able to reach a certain goal. They try it themselves, but they don't ask God for it. They want to get it another way. A lot of times I'll say, God, you know what? I got this tax bill coming up here, and in fact, Larry helped me pay it on the internet today, and it's taxes on my house. It seems like every year it goes up, and I said, God, I depend on you to provide for me. So when I went to get it and get it paid, I had it in my checking account. My Social Security came in, and I went and got it done. He always provides, and a lot of times about this time of the year, I begin to get a little edgy about that I've got that, and I've got my house insurance and all that that's real high, and I don't know. I think, well, how can I get this together? And I realize every single year I go through the same thing. So this year I determined I was not going to get upset about having these big bills coming in at one time. So one of the tax bills for the first of the year, I've already paid it. I paid it in advance. So today we paid that in advance. And so as soon I know I'll have the money when it comes time for me to pay for my insurance too. But we do ask God to help us. We remind him that he is our provider. We remind him that he cares for us and that he died for us, that Jesus died for us, and that we can have all that we need. And the word says, and my God shall supply all of my needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. So he will always supply what we need. But I was real interested in this prayer, and a lot of people have been for years and have studied it about Jabez, because he knew that God was the one that would provide for him. He knew it. And when he asked him, he must have expected it to happen, because it says right here, and God granted him that which he requested. So everything that he asked God for, is what I understand in that verse, is that he did grant every one of those requests to him. But see, he prayed it in the will of God. He prayed it in the way that he should have. He prayed it in the way that he knew that he could trust God, and he had faith in God to do what he needed, or to give him what he needed. But I'm going to go back to James here again. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going in circles here. James 4:2 and 3, ye lust to have it and have not. Well, what he's saying here, sometimes when you lust for something, you're lusting for something that somebody else has got a lot of times. And it's talking about jealous. That word there is used for are jealous. And have not. And you don't have it, and don't have anything. You kill and desire You covet what others have, and you to have and cannot obtain. It's just you're not fulfilled in life because you want this and want that, and you want what others have got, and you don't look at yourself and realize that what you've got is what God has blessed you with. First of all, that He has blessed you with it, and He has given us all these blessings, but there's not anything wrong with asking Him to bless us. And I could say, Lord, bless me. I could say, Lord, please bless me right now, because I'm not getting too good in this message, or not getting too far in it. But I need Him to give me the words to say. And He knows that, and He provides it. But I haven't been up here in a while, and so you'll have to just kind of overlook my age too, which I just don't tell my age anymore. So y'all know that. Okay. And you ask and receive not, because you ask amiss. In other words, when you ask for something and you don't get it, it's because your motives are wrong. You're asking with the wrong motives. You're asking amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust, your desires. God won't answer this kind of prayer. At least Jabez recognized that God is the source of all blessings, and Jabez asked God to bless him. James said that we have not because we ask not, and then goes on to address the issue of selfish motives in prayer. Paul encourages believers not to be anxious, but to make our requests to God with prayer and thanksgiving. Philippians 4:6. Be careful, or don't be worried for nothing. Do not worry about anything. But in everything. That "in" right there is a big word, because it's little, but it's a big word. Because when you're worried about things, and you're in the middle of something, so if you're in it, that means that you're in the middle of something that's going on and that you're worried about. Well, I mean, that's simple, but that's what it is. He's saying, but in everything, while you're in the middle of anything, or while you're in the middle of with other things, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. So, not only does He want to bless us like He did Jabez, He wants to also to get us to the place that we don't worry about what we don't have. We don't worry about what's coming next. We don't worry, like I was talking about a while ago, we don't have to worry about our bills that's coming in. God has said He would provide us, He would take care of us, and that we have to, He said, cast your cares on me. I know myself, when I get along with the Lord in the mornings, one of the first things I do, if I wake up in the morning and I got some kind of care on my mind, if it's about somebody's problem or something that's going on around me or something, I have to get along with the Lord. And while I'm along with the Lord, I have to start casting those cares on Him, because He says He cares for us. It doesn't matter if you have needs of money to take care of your debts. If you have a thing that you're worried about that's coming down the pike, something that's happening in your life or around you, you can always trust God. He says, don't be careful for anything, or don't be worried about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication. Right when you're in the middle of it, that's the best time to get along with God and ask Him to help you to get through it. I mean, there's hurts, there's loss of our loved ones, especially around Christmas time when they've passed around the Christmas time, or because that you miss them more in times when your just family gets together and things like that. My mother lately, I've been really missing her. She's something else, I'll tell you. I can tell you some stories Well, I will tell you about the one with the bear. She lives up on Caesar's Head Highway, or she did with my sister. And they had a bear that would come down through their yard a good bit. One time it came through there and tore up the grill where they had cooked something, and it smelled that grill, and he went after it and he tore it up. Actually, he tore the thing up and tore up other things on the porch too, on her deck. But Mother was sitting in a swing one day. She had this little swing, where 2 or 3 people could sit in it, on the front porch of my sister's house. And my mother was. She said I looked up, and she said, down the deck at the bottom of the steps was the bear standing there, and it was just standing there. And I said, well, Mama, what did you do? She said, well, I quietly got up off the swing, and I walked in the house. And I said, well, what about the bear? She said, well, it just went on its way, because it would go down and get in the creek across the road from them. But one day, my grandmother actually picked up a snake. She was in her walker walking through the yard, and she picked up a snake that crawled across around her walker by the tail. She did this a few times and slammed it against a tree and killed the snake. Now, this was my grandmother. This is my mother's mother. So both of them were were something else. Both of them were. But I miss them, and I use my grandmother's red Bible sometimes now. Let's go on. It says by prayer and supplication. Sometimes we got to go just a little bit farther than praying. Sometimes we have to really get down with God about it, and sometimes we're praying in tears. It doesn't matter what supplication. It has to be a little bit more than just praying. It's something that you put into it. You put more of yourself into it, more emotions and feelings into it. And the love, feeling God's love around you, that helps it be stronger and more personal and intimate with God. And it says with thanksgiving, by prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. That's one of the things that so many people, the one man came back because Jesus healed one of the lepers out of the 10, came back to him and thanked him out of the 10. And one of the things I try to do as much as I can, I'm just not just talking about myself tonight, but others do, and I know you people in here do, is thank God. When God does something for us, we need to really thank him and let him know how much we appreciate him and what he does for us. I don't know if I would like to go another day without knowing God. I don't think I would. I couldn't live. I really couldn't live a life that is pleasing to God if I didn't have his relationship and his presence in me. And we're not always pleasing to God. We can be selfish, or we can be, other things can come along in our lives that we do or say. But God is always there to answer our prayers. He's always there to forgive us and to help us along the way. I was told one time that it's kind of like a little child that's learning to walk. And that little child can fall when it's walking and running, toddling or whatever. And the daddy and mother don't get down there and say, well, you stupid kid, what's the matter with you? You can't walk. What's the matter with you? You can't stand up on your feet. No, a loving parent will go and pick that child up and say, honey, it's going to be all right. Just hold them close to them until they quit crying. And that's the way God is with us. We can stumble a little bit sometimes, and we can my problem sometimes is maybe saying something I shouldn't. Not a bad word about it. I'm away from that. Now, I'm this old now that I don't have those in my vocabulary anymore. I know Larry, he did something, and he said, praise the Lord, hurt himself the other day instead of saying, what he would have done later in his early life before he came to the Lord. I'm going to read Proverbs 16:3 out of the Amplified. Commit, or it means to roll, your works or your cares to the Lord. Submit and trust them to Him, and your plans will succeed if you respond to His will and guidance. When we're seeking God for something and praying for ourselves about something, we have to be ready to commit it to the Lord. To, like as we said, casting all your cares upon Him. And then your works would be here, it means your cares, to the Lord, and to submit and trust them to Him. One of the first things that I do, and I'm sure you do too, I use myself because I'm the only one that knows what I do, and when I'm alone with the Lord, I will just submit to Him. I'll humble myself before God. And I will ask Him to forgive me for any sin in my life that I don't, even things that maybe that well, here's the way I do it. I say, Father, forgive me for every sin of word, thought, or deed, every sin of omission or commission, every misuse of my tongue. That's the one really for me. Forgive me for misusing my tongue in some way or another. And then I would pray it in Jesus' name. And I do that a lot. I have to, because I want to check myself and see if there's anything in my life that's not pleasing to God. I want to get rid of it. And I ask Him to take it out. If there's anything in me, in my thoughts, in my words, or anything that I do in my life, I'm asking Him to take it out. I remember when He delivered me from fear. We were praying at TV 16, and we were doing deliverance there. And so we were praying for this person, and we were praying for them about fear. I got fear when I was a child, some abuse during my childhood, and I would have bad nightmares and everything, so I had fear. I would dream that I was running, and something was trying to catch me, and I couldn't get my legs to move. And that was another example of the part that a child, if a child is treated the wrong way in life, if that child falls and you go pick it up and love it in your arms like God does us, if that child has done something wrong, you have to learn to forgive them too, as well as asking God to forgive you yourself, because they're part of you. And parents and grandparents, what I'm saying. And also, if you will submit and trust your decisions and your works, and our works is not just what we do to serve God. Our works are our cares. And if we submit and trust them to Him, our plans will succeed, as long as you respond to His will and guidance in it. And so this is 3 little things that I'm going to leave with you. It's clear that it's right to ask God for things that we believe are good. You want to ask Him things for good. You don't want to pray that somebody's going to die. You don't want to pray for something like that, or that you're going to die. God, you're just as important to God as that person that you get mad at. He don't want you to treat yourself any worse than you would treat anybody else, or any better. That doesn't sound right, but I think you know what I'm saying. Okay. It is clear that it's right to ask God for, number one, ask God for things that we believe are good. Number two, to thank Him for them. And number three, and to keep in mind that we can trust Him to meet all of our needs. That is all I got. I got it one morning this week for tonight. And I thank God for it, but I hope that you can read through what I'm saying, that it comes from my heart, that I want God, I want to make sure that I say what God gives me. But also I want to say it where you can understand it. Sometimes I don't understand myself. Sometimes I don't understand what I'm thinking, but then God works with me. But just like He does with everybody else. My friend is here, Nikhil, and he and I are going to sing Silent Night. He asked me, what was it?